Well, you know, Friday is a good day to start something slightly new. I'm back again with Donna at the helm. And so we're uh, getting familiar with the computer because Father Connor is not there to guide us today. But we're trying. Um, Today's program is going to be about C.S. Lewis. And the book in question is Little Book of Wisdom: Meditations on Faith, Life, Love, and Literature, compiled by Andrea Kirk Asaf and Kelly Ann Leahy. The title is Pure Poetry. Donna and I both together said the same thing when we looked at that. Doesn't that remind you of a poem? Happens to be one I read to you. Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Hey, I got through that whole thing and I wasn't reading. But tell me, does that cover, the spine, the back, every inch of it reminds me of Robert Frost? I think he and C.S. Lewis would have gotten along quite well. Now, this is literally snippets. It's a small book with a mighty, mighty purpose. And it is to introduce you to aspects of C.S. Lewis and to remind you, if you're a fan of his, of some of the things he said. They're all very brief snippets, and I'll tell you the source if you want to pursue it further. But first, the introduction. Upon reading the words of Clive Staples Lewis, by the way, he hated Clive. And the only thing he hated worse than Clive was Staples. So he announced to his mother and Nanny and anybody who'd listen that he wanted to be known as Jack. So that's how he's actually referred to. That's not on any document other than the document of life. Upon reading the words of Clive Staples Lewis, it does not take long to feel as though you are an intimate friend, as though it's just the two of you sharing a pint at the Eagle and Child, his favorite pub, or a cup of tea by the fireside in his sitting room. When we picture him, Lewis might be wearing a cozy dressing gown and slippers, or a tweed jacket with a smoking pipe in hand. But do not let these comforting associations fool you. Lewis is the master of laying bare human folly and getting to the heart of the matter. Although in a most approachable manner, his wit can bite, and his wisdom can expose our doubts to the light of day. His insight can be so jarring because it comes directly from his own experience. It comes from a life deeply pondered and bravely lived. In both the world of Narnia and in his Christian apologetical works, Lewis draws us up close to the comforting fireplace with his conversational style. Just as we've warmed up, he catches us off guard by stirring up the hot coals of truth and striking our consciences with burning clarity. In the pages that follow, you will find, dear reader, maps to help you make the same journey that Eustace Scrubb, he was one of the characters in one of his books. Lewis's words of wisdom on how we should live as Christians, embrace the gift of joy, transform grief, learn how to love, see reality through the imagination, enjoy friendship. So, pull up a chair by the fire. It's time for a conversation with a wise friend. Oftentimes, Aslan is referred to, and that's what Aslan, the tiger in Narnia, looks like. From The Weight of Glory. We are always falling in love or quarreling, looking for jobs or fearing to lose them, getting ill and recovering, following public affairs. You know, if we met ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end, before we really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while the conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come. From his autobiography, Surprised by Joy. A good but unexamined life will be high on duty and not likely to celebrate the old paradoxes, the ironic coincidences, and the humor of being dirt. From The Magician's Nephew, part of the Narnia story. Make your choice, adventurous stranger, strike the bell and bide the danger, or wonder till it drives you mad. What would have followed if you had? From On 3 Ways of Writing for Children in Of Other Worlds, Essays and Stories. Critics who treat adult as a term of approval instead of as merely a descriptive term cannot be adults themselves. To be concerned about being grown up, to admire the grown up because it is grown up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish. These things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence, they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things ought to want to grow. But to carry on in the middle of life or even into early manhood, now this concern about being adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I'm 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. From on living in the atomic age. Remember, he was part of the atomic age when it was young and just starting. If we are going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let the bomb come when it finds us doing sensible and human things, praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They might break our bodies. Oh, you know, a microbe can do that. But they need not dominate our minds. From the weight of glory. The sun looks down on nothing half so good as a household laughing together over a meal. From his book, Mere Christianity. No man who bothers about originality will ever be original. Whereas, if you simply try to tell the truth without caring tuppence how often it has been told before, you will, 9 times out of 10, become original without ever even having noticed it. From one of my favorites. Someday I'm going to read you a few of these. This is the Screw Tape Letters. Now, what's amazing, this is taken not from good to evil, but it's starting with the devil and how he's going to work backward to get forward. They're really quite amusing. And I will someday share those with you. The future is something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour. Whatever he does, whoever he is. I love that. From Reflections on the Psalms. I had not noticed how the humblest and at the same time most balanced and capacious minds praised most, while the cranks, misfits, and malcontents praised least. The good critics found something to praise in many imperfect works. The bad ones continually narrowed the list of books we might be allowed to read. The healthy and unaffected man, even if luxuriously brought up and widely experienced in good cookery, could praise a very modest meal. The dyspeptic and the snob found fault with all, except where intolerably adverse circumstances interfere. Praise almost seems to be inner health made audible. From the 4 Loves. We are mirrors whose brightness is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. From Transposition, and other addresses. We do not want merely to see beauty. We want something else which can hardly be put into words. To be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to receive it into ourselves, to bathe in it, to become part of it. From mere Christianity. Free will, though it makes evil possible, is also the only thing that makes possible any love or goodness or joy worth having. Again, from Mere Christianity. If you want to get warm, you must stand near the fire. If you want to be wet, oh, you must get into the water. If you want joy, power, peace, eternal life, you must get close to, or even into, the thing that has them. They are not a sort of prize which God could, if he chose, just hand to anyone. From The Horse and His Boy, back to Narnia. Think of this. Do not dare to dare. That's my motto. From Mere Christianity. If you look for truth, you may find comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you will not get either comfort or truth. Only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin. And in the end, despair. From a wondrous book, very short, but it's something that certainly helped me in a time when I needed it. A Grief Observed. This particular book was written after the death, after a very short marriage, of his wife, Joy. But it is a template for survival. Talk to me about the truth of religion. I will listen gladly. Talk to me about the duty of religion. Well, I'll listen submissively, but don't come talking to me about the consolations of religion, or I shall suspect that you do not understand. Surprised by Joy. Divine punishments are also mercies. From A Grief Observed. For in grief, nothing stays put. One keeps on emerging from a phase, but it always reoccurs, round and round. Everything repeats. Am I going in circles? Or dare I hope that I'm on a spiral? But if a spiral, am I going up or down it? How often will it be for always? How often will the vast emptiness astonish me like a complete novelty and make me say, I never realized my loss until this moment. The same leg is cut off, time after time. And from the same source, oh, I thought I could describe a state, make a map of sorrow. Sorrow, however, turns out to be not a state, but a process. The silver chair, back to Narnia again. Crying is all right in its way while it lasts. But you have to stop sooner or later. And then you still have to decide what to do. From the four loves. We are born helpless. As soon as we are fully conscious, we discover loneliness. We need others physically, emotionally, intellectually. We need them if we are to know anything, even about ourselves. From Mere Christianity. Do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Just act as if you do, and you will presently come to love him. From Four Loves. Love anything, and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable, the alternative to tragedy, or at least to the risk of tragedy, is damnation. The only place outside of heaven where you can be perfectly safe from all the dangers and perturbations of love is hell. From Mere Christianity. Nothing you have not given away will ever really be yours. From Abolition of Man. The heart never takes the place of the head, but it can and should obey it. Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer. It's so much easier to pray for a bore than to go and see one. Again, from Abolition of Man. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. From An Experiment in Criticism. We seek an enlargement of our being. We want to be more than ourselves. We want to see with other eyes, to imagine with other imaginations, to feel with other hearts, as well as with our own. We demand windows from the problem of pain. Friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." The four loves. In a circle of true friends, each man is simply what he is. Stands for nothing but himself. No one cares tuppence about anyone else's family, profession, class, income, race, or previous history. Of course, you will get to know about most of these things in the end, but casually. They will come out bit by bit to furnish an illustration or an analogy, to serve as pegs for an anecdote, never for their own sake. That is the kingliness of friendship. From the letters of C.S. Lewis to Arthur Greeves, who was a very long-time childhood friend. Friendship is the greatest of worldly goods. Certainly, to me, it was the chief happiness of life. If I had a piece of advice to a young man about a place to live, I think I should say, sacrifice almost everything to live where you can be near your friends. From Mere Christianity. When you have reached your own rooms, be kind to those who have chosen different doors, and to them who are still in the hall. If they are wrong, they need your prayers all the more. And if they are your enemies, then you are under orders to pray for them. That is one of the rules common to the whole house. From The Magician's Nephew, Narnia. Look for the valleys, the green places, and fly through them. There will always be a way through. Stories and other essays on literature. Since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Out of the Silent Planet. A pleasure is not full grown. until it is remembered, the weight of glory. There is a dignity and poignancy in the bare fact that a thing exists. I love this one. From Mere Christianity. Badness? Oh, it's only spoiled goodness. From also Mere Christianity. This year or this month, or more likely this very day, we have failed to practice ourselves the kind of behavior we expect from other people. From the Pilgrim's Regress. What does not satisfy when we find it was not the thing we were desiring. And the last battle, also from Narnia. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now, at last, they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. And in conclusion, really not the end, you can pick up this book and travel for hours and hours with these wonderful quotes. This is from the Pilgrim's Regress. One road leads home, and 1,000 roads lead into the wilderness. And so, I hope you find the road that leads you home. And if you end up in the wilderness, there are some friends who will stay by you. Don't worry. What a joyously affirmative book this is. And now, please don't forget, we're going to have poetry next week. And I actually think I was going to read something, but somebody on Facebook talks a lot, and I think it may be me. I didn't have time to read anything from the poems of C.S. Lewis, but I think we'll probably spend some time since we've started with Lewis with some of his poetry. And I personally was not aware that he had written so many wonderful poems, but it's definitely a part of his oeuvre, his work of life. And so, have a wonderful weekend. I will see you on Wednesday. Thank you for coming.